All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
It's Friday, so it's Wheel of Time. We are still in the Gathering Storm. Chapter 23 is where we're starting today.
Yep.
And no comments from last time, so either we didn't say anything profound or we said everything needed to be said. Uh, one of the two. I hope it's the second. I actually kind of liked what we did in the last episode. I thought we were pretty on
Uh-huh.
fire, but that's because it was our first real chance to bitch and moan about the Sanderson Matt stuff, which I think we
Yeah.
exhausted that one. So we will have some Matt today, and we'll do less bitching and moaning and more story.
Yeah, I think we can get through chapter 28. So we'll theoretically, unless we get tangented pretty hard, be doing chapter 23 through 28 today. And um I wasn't even thinking this when I brought this up last time with the Tawan chapter, the C.S. Lewis quote about uh, about a benevolent tyranny being the worst tyranny. And as I started reading chapter 23, I thought, you know what? That is that quote turned up to 11. That is what Rand has become. Is because he is I am doing this for the greater good, but without any of the emotion that you would expect to come along, any of the passion you would expect to go along with that uh, professed benevolence. I mean, he doesn't even have. I doubt he would even put it in those terms
Well,
of
because he's
benevolent
doing it
dictator.
because he feels like he has to, not
Mm-hmm.
because he wants to.
Yeah, and it's the rest of this chapter or this chapter, the rest of this book is not a pleasant experience. Um, so to say with Rand, but I actually enjoy it in the same way I kind of enjoy like the dark humor of the Black Knight and Holy Grail, but it I enjoy it because for one, as we've kind of said, it's been a long time coming, perhaps too long. And we can rant a little bit about that at the end of the book that we spent so long in the build up to it. And as I said, when he snaps, it's written very well. It really does land. I just wish we would have had a little more time here. It feels kind of rushed, but we'll rant about that when we get to the end. Um, but
Which is funny because for most of the last few books we've said we've spent too much time on.
mhm, mhm. The other thought I had, because as put the headphones on so I don't hear the wife ranting in her meetings and distracting me, and it just so happened that the Return of the King soundtrack is what popped up on my playlist, my reading playlist, and it kind of occurred to me that there's another point where Jordan takes the idea of the chosen one and turns it on his head. Because in this moment, Rand is both Frodo and Smeagol at the same time. That I had the thought of, you know, give it to me, precious. And it kind of turns it on its head of of Rand has become both of those archetypes at the same time here. Um,
Are you saying carrying the burden, but also is just like almost becoming the burden is becoming part of him?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
Um,
you can say that's just Frodo because
mm,
that is the turning of what the ring does to you.
except you could argue that right at the very end when he puts the ring on, um, the darkness overcomes him. Well, for Frodo, the darkness overcomes him. The difference between Frodo and Smeagol is that Smeagol embraced the darkness. He willingly took it on, and
Well,
that's
one of
what Rand has done.
the difference between Frodo and Smeagol was right in the beginning. Frodo, Frodo and Sam are one path, and Schmeagol, and I don't know the name of the guy he beat over the head with the
Hmm.
rock, is the other path. And those were both things that happen right away, and you choose the path.
Mm, that's a good point. Um, I really like that we're still not in Rand's head yet. Right after the fact, that we're seeing the aftermath of this from Cadsuan's point of view. Um, and so on page 358, you get a pretty, through her head here, seeing what's going on. And uh I love this moment because again, she's a great character. She's a strong female character in the language of today, but she's a strong female character that works because she's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that here with where is it? It's right at the top of 358. How could he, referring to Rand, have gotten himself into this much trouble again? And how had that blasted Forsaken gotten free of her cell? Um, Someone must have helped her, but that meant a dark friend in their camp. It wasn't unlikely. If dark friends existed in the White Tower, then they could undoubtedly be found here. But what dark friend could incapacitate Three Aes Sedai? So she's one, still a little bit blinded and thus blindsided by what happens here, by her inability to um, think about, the unknown knowns and contemplate the worst case scenarios. Um, but she's also still blinded with her. Yes, you have something important to teach Rand, but you need to stop treating him like a petulant child. Yes, he acts that way sometimes, but he is not a petulant child. He is an emperor, and he's a grown ass man besides, who does still do good things and make good decisions. And the fact that you can't acknowledge that is what has been holding you back. Um, and a little farther down the page is, yeah, down at the bottom where she's being all cranky and speak up, boy, she said. We need to know if the camp is in danger. The danger has been dealt with, he said softly. Something in his voice made her hesitate. So I like that basically this is her Moraine moment. So Moraine had her moment of epiphany because she saw all these possible futures and their potential outcomes, some of which were really bad. Um, and those stuck with her, and those made her realize I need to treat Rand differently. My goal may still be laudable, may still be the right target, but I've been aiming at it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Cadsuan's moment of that, but she has no idea what to do about it yet. But I love the recognition of, oh, poopy,
Yeah,
something
and
has changed.
this is something in real life too. Cold, hard anger, not calculated, cold, reserved anger is a powerful tool. If
Mm-hmm.
you're someone who blows up and yells all the time, the people you're yelling at in the back of their mind are going, I'm just going to get through this rant and do my thing anyways. It's the Karen at the counter, it becomes a meme. But cold, hard anger gets shit done because people don't know how to deal with it. And this is, I made the comment in our political episodes. I said, you do know I'm the least triggerable person you know. But that's actually a strength there when it comes to anger because I don't have a blow up in your face anger.
Mm-hmm.
I only have happy, 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 happy. Oh, you took away that happy. Now you're dead. Not dead physically. I've never killed anybody in
Mm-hmm.
my entire life that I know of. But I remember the one I can think of is the guys that redid our floor. This company came in, did a crap job from the beginning. I ended up doing part of their job for them because it was going so slow. And the supervisor came in. I requested him to come in, and I never raised my voice. I just talked to him like this. And he was a really tall man, and he tried to use that looming to his advantage in the beginning. But by the time we were walking up the stairs, looking at the job his guys were doing, he was bowing and scraping his way up the stairs simply because I just talked like this and expressed my anger in that way. And you could tell because it makes me angrier when I get angry. Here's my trigger point. If you make me angry, I get double angry because I hate being angry.
Mm.
So if you do something far enough that makes me angry, you took me out of my happy place, and that makes me double angry. So I have no in between, no blow up anger.
So
It's
I
just there. You've reached the point, and we're gonna solve this now. And that's where
uh
Rand is. The problem is he has become that. It's not a tool in his belt anymore.
yes.
This
Yes.
would be a great tool if he was in a sword fight because you're calm, you're calculated, you're in the void like he did in the beginning. But this is not a good trait to have when you're, dealing with people,
That's a really
especially
good
your
point.
allies.
That's a really good point because a switch has been flipped here. Is that and this is where cats when oh poopy, something has gone terribly wrong here, and she will kind of eventually figure it out. But what she was doing was just her methodology was contributing to that switch, and she didn't realize it
Mhm.
because Rand has gone from the extreme. Yes, you were trying to get him to control his temper and trying to get him to stop, you know, ranting and screaming and threatening people to get what he needed. But you weren't recognizing that he needed those things to get done, and he needed people he could rely on so he didn't have to do that. And now instead of a tool, it's just he swung to the other side, like the Shido. They've given up Giotto. They have nothing, and they have gone way off the deep end because of it.
Well, and part of the problem is he's right, sort of.
Sort of.
He needed to be this way right in the beginning when Samurai should have been tried and stilled on the spot.
Hmm.
She confessed to being who she is. We can prove it
She's too
again.
dangerous.
She's too dangerous. She should have been stilled on the spot. And that's even a greater punishment than death. So
Hmm.
he needed to be this hard in that moment. He doesn't need to, he just needs to have that part of himself though.
That's a good point, and because he wasn't whole, so to speak, because he's so ragged emotionally, he wasn't thinking clearly. And this is actually going to be a major point in the next chapter because it's Sir Stupid and binary thinking. Gawain is on these tracks, and it's either this or it's that. And he gets to, I've been talking about it, so I had to wear my shirt with Uncle Iroh enjoying his cup of tea because he's the wise one in Last Airbender. And,
Well, see, I've got
and
true wisdom. I don't know how to act my age. I've never been
yes,
sold before.
exactly. But that's what Gawain gets with Brine is no, it's not. It's not this or that. Why didn't you think about this? Why didn't you think about that? What are you gonna do here? What are you gonna do there? What if this happens? And because because Rand has gotten himself into this narrow railroad track, he couldn't think outside the box. He could only think she's dangerous, she needs to be executed. No, I won't kill a woman. And if he hadn't put himself in this tight spot with these blinders on, he might have thought, you know what, but we can still her, and that is just punishment, and that will protect us while we try to question her. Um, and to your point about uh the coldness, I learned this 3 decades ago from a great uh high school drama teacher, Mr. Friesenhahn, who when when you are a young actor, this is why I hate child actors. You don't understand nuance because you to to the point of your shirt, you haven't lived long enough. You haven't been this age before. You don't know real wisdom because you literally haven't experienced. You are mimicking what you've seen. And so this is a major problem in uh in the live action Airbender versus the show, is that the kid playing Aang, the main character, he only knows how to be whiny, to be emotional, or shouty, to be angry. And he doesn't really have a middle ground. And one of the mind-opening things that Mr. Friesenhahn taught us was you don't always have to yell. In fact, sometimes it's better if you don't in an
Mm-hmm.
emotional scene. Is that is that you need to be able to bring that down to have that impact. Otherwise, you don't have that impact. And
In fact, people are prepared to be yelled at.
exactly. And that is why this scene lands so well, because it's from Cadsuan's point of view and because she's expecting one thing and she gets something totally different. So much so that at the end of the chapter here, so this is page 361. Um, Cadsuan, he said softly, do you believe that I could kill you right here, right now, without using a sword or the power? Do you believe that if I simply willed it, the pattern would bend around me and stop your heart by coincidence? Being Tavaren didn't work that way. Light, it didn't, did it? He couldn't bend the very pattern to his will, could he? And yet, meeting his eyes, she did believe. Against all logic, she looked in those eyes and knew that if she didn't leave, she would die. It lands because of who he was and who he becomes, and because we're getting it from Catsuan's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
It also gave me a thought of, is is Rand bluffing here? And that if she didn't leave, would he use the true power to kill her? Or, and this is going to come a bit more later when we see more Rand scenes, so I won't go too far into the spoilery territory, but, or could he actually do that? Is this the darkness within him, the dark one within him, warping the pattern in much the same way that we seen the random events of chaos, of entropy. We get one later here with a bunch of bugs bubbling up out from under a tent in the Aes Sedai camp. And is this that, but directed because he's Tavarin and because he's warping the pattern with darkness?
Or he still has his weakness, as hard as he is, and he's doing something with the true power to make her believe and leave instead of call his bluff. Because it's not a bluff.
Mm.
He will kill her if she doesn't leave. This is the inner part of him saying, please leave, so I don't have to kill you.
Could be, and that kernel is still there, which is how he's able to eventually come back. My other thought was this is why Min has been so important, and talking about the balance of the pattern. The pattern is it is, and
Alternate
he's
theory.
just he's destroying that balance.
Alternate theory, his use of the true power allowed the Dark One to have that influence.
Mm.
So there is a warping of the pattern around him, but in an
It
entropic sense, but it is the
it's
Dark
not
One actually
directly him,
touching.
it's
Yeah.
indirectly Rand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all right. Any other thoughts before we move on to Sir Stupid and his dumminess?
Nope.
Um, so my first thought when I realized, it's a Gawain chapter, was, all right, is there any significance of this dummy following the previous dummy of Rand followed by Gawain? And I thought, yeah, there has to be, because um they've both been emotional and made bad decisions because of that emotional effort, but Rand has a better core. He has more of a core than Galwin is. That's why Galwin is so listless. It's we try not to bring the politics stuff into Fridays, but we've been talking about Gen Z, teen and young adult boys moving right. And as Eric Weinstein said, well, yeah, what else do you where else do you expect them to go when you treat them like crap all the time and call them terrible things? The problem is, okay, yeah, but then what do they do? Because what else do they know? Do they know how to be a proper man when all they're doing is being reactionary against the toxic femininity? And in a lot of ways, I think that's what Galwin's story is all about, is that he's so listless because he doesn't actually know who he is. Um and right at the opening here, uh where is it? Um okay, yeah, down at the bottom of page 366. See 363. He'd been committed the moment he'd left sleep behind in Dorland. Yeah, but committed to what? You you all you'd committed yourself to, and we pointed this out at the time, he had this revelation of I've only been making decisions when emotional and I haven't been thinking things through, and then he immediately makes an emotional decision. And I think this is maybe Sanderson rescuing the story, maybe this is from the notes and this is where it was always going to go, that as we've talked about lately when talking about Godwin, is maybe RJ didn't want us to like Godwin. Um and and the way that, you know, these thoughts in his head, the way these scenes develop, um he's thinking about the younglings and how he has an obligation to them even though he doesn't like the tower, doesn't like Alida. um he could never go back to them now. It itched at him. This was the first time his wavering had been revealed to a large group. Ah, so this made me wonder, is this Jordan again demonstrating knowledge without technically knowing? Because this is something Peterson has talked about, and I don't know how widespread this idea has become as something relatively modern, which is the idea of high IQ, low performing narcissists,
Mm.
which cuts me deep Shrek because that's me. And the psychological problems that creates because you're narcissistic, so you have these expectations and you have an IIQ, so it would seem that you should be able to achieve these expectations, but for
Uh,
any number of
key,
reasons you
key
don't.
key words here to use narcissism correctly. It's the validation from what you would get from the things
Mm,
you think you
mm,
expected. If you're narcissistic, you need the validation. And if you're
yes,
not getting it, you become bitter.
that's a good point. And here it's not really, and I think this is very clever on Sanderson and or RJ's part here, is that this revelation that it wasn't abandoning the younglings that really itched at him. It's the fact that his wavering was revealed to a large group. So now there's embarrassment, there's shame,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Which is, I think, why I'm annoyed with Godwin because he's very shame based. When I
yes,
love Matt because he's very guilt based.
yes.
There's a huge chasm between the two.
And so I think that there is a big clue as to what is wrong with Galwin and why he doesn't have a good story, and not even a good ending. He doesn't even have a good journey. And I think that's it right there,
Yeah.
because ultimately he's not actually the good person he thinks he is. He's just vacant and vapid.
And which you can go back to book the when is the tower chasm 3,
That's all the way back in book 5.
book 5. Okay, so now he's talking about Swan, he letting Swan getting away, dallying with Egwene. Here's where it's revealed that not only is he shame based, but he let Swan go not because he would feel guilty if something bad happened to her, but because of himself. He let her go for him, not for her.
Mm-hmm.
He dallied with Egwene because it made him feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so this now he's on the point. He's not going to Egwene now for her sake. He's still got thoughts in his head. I'm going to get her out of there
Mm-hmm.
because that's for his sake. Now we're going to be on the run together. It's going to be this love story
And
from the ages.
I'll drag her back to Camelin so that she can be with Elaine, and I can keep my eye on both of them, keep both of them safe. He's even thinking maybe I can talk Brian into coming with me and get him out of this mess. Yeah.
It's the same. It's actually a story told before because it's the good and bad of Lancelot.
Mm.
Lancelot did it for him, his feelings for Guinevere when well there was a country on the line, and
You know what? That is an interesting point, because as we so much of what Jordan is doing is taking the tropes of fantasy and turning them on their head or giving them a unique spin. And
and
Gawain,
what better twist than to have him named after Sir Gawain, but actually be
who
representative of Lancelot.
who was the most noble of this, Gawain and the Green Knight, the whole point of that story is that he was the most noble, he was the most honorable, even to the point of self-sacrifice, because honor demanded it. And yet this is who this Gawain is. And I think there's more proof of that on page, so the next page 364. um uh there's this thinking in his head that I just talked about talking sense into her and getting her away from all this. And and he has this thought about, um you know, focus on Egwene at the very top of it. Um, at the very top of page 364, yet leaving had been the right thing to do. For the first time in months, his actions matched his heart,
Oh.
saving Egwene. That was something he could believe in. And there's and the first thing to jump in my mind was something we talked about a couple episodes ago, whenever it was that Perrin had this thought. I think it was at the end of Knife of Dreams, when he's getting ready for the attack on Malden. And he had this similar thought. And then we see after he rescues Fail that why isn't everything magically better? Because that's not enough.
Well, and it's even more damning because just two paragraphs down from that, he knows where the hell he should be. I'm going to get Egwene, I'm going to get Brian, and we're going to go down to Andor,
Mm-hmm.
where he should have been the whole damn time.
Mm-hmm. But again, he doesn't have enough core. Perrin, for all the faults in his story, he at least learns a lesson. And it's because of who he was before he got into this mess, that obsessively focusing just on Fail, I need her and nothing else, that's not enough for any man. In fact, and that's a good way to ruin a relationship, because your woman needs more than that too. Your woman needs more than just your obsessive love for her. She needs you to be more than just that.
You know, I saw some data the other day. Date Psych posted it. Uh, Semi checked out men in a heterosexual relationship are the it was who checks out of the relationship, the woman, the man, or nobody. and the odds of breakup based on the data. And men who have checked out of the relationship, it's almost never still that the relationship breaks up. Women who check out of the relationship, almost always the relationship breaks up. And indifferent, obviously, that's the ideal, right? Uh, and I want to see follow up on that is why?
Hmm.
Is it because she actually appreciates that he's hardworking and that there's all these other things that go into a relationship other than just I love you so much, right? Whereas on the guy, when she drifts off, there's the nurturing goes away with it.
Hmm.
Whereas on the male end, the support and the protection and all of the things men do stays, even though they're kind of not as lovey dovey all the time. And I don't know where I was going with that, but it was relevant to what you were saying.
Well, no, I think that is a good that is a good way to point out the contrast between Perrin,
Hmm.
who
Oh, you were
is
saying
having
you're my
yes,
heart is not enough,
and and,
and I
and
think that illustrates it because
mhm.
the guys do have to have other things for her appreciation as
Perrin
well
is
as.
learning that lesson, but more importantly, he and Fael are learning it together. Gawain isn't learning that lesson, and you know, we'll get into it more when we get there. But then them together is a terrible love story because neither one of them learn it, and they don't grow together.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
so,
Egwene becomes what we would call a strong, great woman, but don't go to her for relationship advice. That's.
mhm, mhm, yeah. Um, for both of them, this is kind of they're just checking boxes rather than actually doing something um organic, so to speak. Whereas Perrin and Fael's relationship, it grew organically. You could see it growing. It made sense when you get to the end of The Dragon Reborn and he saves her, and now they're gonna, smooch and cuddle in there together now. It made sense, and you saw it growing even more through the Shadow Rising into where it made sense that they got to the point of we're getting married now. Um, for Gawain, it's box checking and it's validation. And that is why he is a tragic and terrible character. Um, and you get some of it here at the bottom of this page, going from and spilling over into 365. There's a clue, I think, to what's about to happen when he finally confronts Brian, which is uh, basically describing the camp as organized chaos because Brian liked organization, but also believed strongly in delegation. Brian would allow officers to run their camps as they wished, and that led to a setup that was less uniform, yet was far better at running itself. Brian likes order, but he has enough wisdom to understand that he can't impose his ideas of order onto everyone and everything. That's exactly what Gawain has been trying to do for half the series now and is still trying to do. And then you jump forward a little bit to page 368, 369, and this is what I was referencing before when Gawain has this thought of the puffed up jerk who um won't listen to him, and he has thought, well, there's only two ways to deal with someone like this, and Godwin is the representation of our short-term satisfaction in dealing with the jerk of, man, I would have loved to have said to that guy, or I wish I would have done, when you have an encounter like this in real life. Okay, but you know to the point of your story, the supervisor who didn't want to have to be there, didn't want to have to deal with this problem, and he might have thought you were the one being the jerk, but you know what? I need to suck it up and say yes sir, no sir, because my guys did screw up here. We did screw up. This isn't right, and I need to make this right because in the long term, me swallowing my pride is what's best for my business and what's best for me. And Godwin doesn't have that. He
Mm-mm.
can't do that. He can't see that.
Which this is, I think, I don't know what Jordan would have done here, but I have to believe because it's been his style up to this point. I don't think we were supposed to have a badassery moment for Godwin there, a woohoo moment. I just felled four of your guys in less than 10 heartbeats kind of moment. And he tried to have uh, Brian himself actually talk down his men because of it. And I'm like, no, I don't think it was supposed to go that way.
I do, because he then immediately gets slapped down in private. Because for I think Brian has enough wisdom to know that Godwin needs to be taught a lesson, but he won't learn it if I embarrass him out here in front of all these people. Plus, for this puffed up sergeant who was being a moron, he also needs to learn a lesson. So I can teach this guy a lesson here and now, and now I'm going to step into my private quarters and I'm going to teach my former student a lesson that he needs to learn. And I think you see the practical demonstration of that wisdom on page 370 when um uh well first to your point, when he stares him down, when Galwin actually grabs hold of his sword and Brian tells him, what are you going to do, cut me down? I know you're a great swordsman. I know you've just demonstrated you're a better swordsman than I am, but what does that prove? That proves nothing except that you're a better swordsman. So what? And then he goes on to demonstrate that wisdom, to give the practical application there on page 370 when he's talking to Galwin of, okay, then what? All right, you're gonna rescue Egwene. How? Why? Then what? He's
Mhm.
he's using the Socratic method to make him think. I'm still your teacher, whether technically I am or not. And I'm going to make you think because, damn it, you haven't been thinking and you need to start thinking. Um, but so jump now to page 375, and he's being taught another hard lesson when, because Godwin brings up his mother and his hatred for Althor. And Brine makes the point, personally, I mean, this is going to be awkward because I'm talking to the son, and I was your mother's lover. We were very close, and Morgase the woman I can forgive, but because of duty, I cannot forgive Morgase the queen. And Andor is better off now without her because she made such a mess. It also annoys me though that nobody has bothered to tell Brine, oh yeah, by the way, that was Ravine. As close as Sawan is to him, why wouldn't she have been the one? Because I'm pretty sure she knows. And
Yeah,
Elaine
because
has been
Egwene,
telling
yeah,
people.
yeah, Egwene should have told Swan at some point.
And and he deserves to know that for multiple reasons, not just from the personal, but also from the professional of, this is what we're facing. This is what our enemy can and has done. He needs to know these things as well as should on a personal level. But the real point here is that even after this demonstration of wisdom, this teaching of lesson, Godwin still doesn't get it. And I think this is I think this is Sanderson slash RJ giving us the clue, the hint that Godwin's story isn't going to end well because he's not the hero he thinks he is and he wants to be, which is So uh so
This brings this back to mind. The infamous the
yes,
poor
yes.
communication. And this is actually one of Egwene's failings because I didn't even think about it this way. But yes, Brian should have known that from the beginning,
Hmm.
and Egwene should have been the one to tell him.
Hmm.
But Egwene, just like Gawain, sometimes doesn't see beyond herself,
Yeah.
unless it's in a political sense, not in a personal sense.
Hmm. So even after all this, um, there's a line here. Gawain shook his head, rage and shock fighting one another. Um, and then after Brian, um, after Brian, tells him the woman I can forgive, the queen I can't. Gawain kept his teeth clenched. Never, he thought, I will never forgive Althor, not for this. And I think we've talked about this before. And isn't there a technical psychological term for this? Of you're wrong, but you clench your teeth and you dig your heels in regardless. That that's what he's doing here. I think I think Sanderson just told us Godwin knows Brian is right, but he doesn't care. And I think that's our big clue that so he's headed for a tragic end because of that. All right, any other thoughts on that? I ended up with way more notes on Sir Dummy than I thought I would. Um, and again, I wonder much like we talked about last time with Sanderson trying to rescue Perrin from the slog. Um, I kind of feel like maybe he gets Gawain a lot more than other characters, and that maybe even some of the other fans, because I think he's doing a
Well, I think that's part of the problem. He does write
yeah,
Gawain pretty well, and from his own mouth, he writes characters well that he identifies with.
yep,
And notice Brian is still talking sense, get back to Andor, but Gawain is
mm-hmm,
still doubling down.
mm-hmm, yeah, yeah.
Because
All
because
right,
remember, Gawain's storyline would have been fixed a long time ago. Maybe it would have made for a different story, but it would have been fixed from a interpersonal level a long time ago had he just gone to Andor when he should
mm-hmm,
when he first got the bad news.
mm-hmm, yeah, yeah. But I think that is part of the tragedy of his story is he doesn't do that, and much like here, he knows he should, but he doesn't. He knows he's wrong, but he digs his heels in because, because of kind of where we started here is that it's not betraying the younglings that really itches him. It's that his wavering was revealed to a large group. It's not that he betrayed them, it's that they now know who he really is. So, in much the same way, he made his choice when the tower split, and now he can't leave because he has to dig his heels in because of ego. Speaking of digging your heels in, chapter 25, I don't have a lot of thoughts on this chapter except of I love the reveal here, which we got a clue and now we get the absolute confirmation. Sheriam is a dark friend. Um, But the main thing I love is on page 379 here, just right at the beginning of the chapter. We've talked about this before, but the banality of evil, of her self-justification. There wasn't an Aes Sedai who wouldn't stab her sisters in the back if she thought it would give her advantage. Sheriam's friends were just a little more practiced at it. That's one euphemistic way to say it. But why had the end of days had to come now of all times? Others in her association spoke of the glory and great honor of being alive at this time, but Sheriam didn't agree. She'd joined to rise in White Tower politics, to have the power to punish those who spited her. She never wanted to participate in some final reckoning with the Dragon Reborn, and she'd certainly never desired to have anything to do with the Chosen. I love it. I love the banality of the evil there, especially in sharp contrast with Elsa, who we just saw a few chapters ago, and her fervor and where that led her, and
Mhm.
how they ultimately kind of end up in the same place. It doesn't matter what you wanted. The 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 evil of the world were happy to use your useful stupidity, and you're going to end up in the same place as Elsa, who was a true believer.
Yeah. It's the old be careful what you ask for thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we get a little bit of Egwene here, which not much to say about that, except that she's still Egwene, so good for her. Um, and we got as much as we needed there. We just needed a tease that is kind of a catch up on, okay, here's what's happening to Egwene now after we last saw her. Now let's move on. Um, and we get a an Aviendha chapter, which, all right, where is it? So she's still doing her punishments. Um, and I don't think it's an accident that while she's working through in her mind what is going on and what she's supposed to be learning, I don't think it's an accident that she keeps having these incredibly negative thoughts about wetlanders, many of whom she knows and knows better about these stereotypes, and calls friend. One of them she's first sister to now. One of them is her would-be lover, and yet she still holds on to these ideas of how uh well, I see at one of these, uh that was because wetlanders were often lazy. They would rather drip water into pails than carry rocks. It's To me, it's the same as Tuan's thinking about Matt and oaths. It's no, he's still a man of his words. Your oath just meant nothing to him.
Mm-hmm.
That punishment, it's not that they're lazy. That punishment means nothing to them. Okay. I don't know.
Because to a wetlander, the difficulty of the task determines the punishment, the level of punishment, where to her, the uselessness of the task
Mhm.
determines the
and,
punishment.
and
So,
and one of my thoughts in that along that line was, go put your nose in the corner and stand there until I tell you can leave. Because that is both. That is, I'm not getting to do what I want to do because I'm a kid and I want to go play. So now I'm really bored and I just have to sit here staring at the corner.
so
So it's, oh,
interesting,
yeah.
interesting enough. When the last midterm I had in behavioral analysis was actually on reinforcement versus punishment, was kind of the main thing, learning and using these structures to learn. Timeout can actually be a positive reinforcement,
Hmm.
because if, say, do the dishes, no, go to timeout, they didn't have to do the dishes.
Hmm.
So some kids would take time out over what it is. So you have to be careful when you use things as punishment, because you
Yeah.
might actually be supporting the behavior.
Right. Right. And so oh, stand in the corner. Oh, well, he's a wetlander. He should like that. He's lazy. Well, no, because that means I'm not getting to do what I want to do. So that punishment actually lands. It means something. It's not a matter of laziness. It's a matter of what does it mean. Um. Anyway, but on so page 386, right at the beginning of the chapter. Where is it? So that in the middle. So she's moving the water drip by drip. It made her angry. Then that anger made her ashamed. The wise ones never let their emotions dominate them in such a way. She had to remain patient and try to understand why she was being punished. But of course, what's funny here is that there's that word again that you love and love to hate, shame. Her anger is bringing her shame.
Yeah, but I love it here because that's the lesson.
Exactly. So what immediately jumped into my head was back in I think it is no, it's got to be Crown of Swords because it's after they have sworn oaths to Althor at Dumai's Wells. And so there's this great scene when Cerelia and Cadsuin finally meet. And in that scene, um uh Cerelia comes in and there's an exchange with Cerelia and Karuna, who is this really overbearing Aes Sedai every time we have seen her. And Cadsuin makes this kind of offhand comment, kind of feeling her out, looking for knowledge of something to the effect of, do you really think Karuna, do you really think they can learn your ways? And she's specifically talking about their ways of weaving. And Cerelia basically makes the point that that's not the point we're trying to teach them. It's not the weaves themselves that we're trying to teach them. And she says, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically, Karuna will be a great woman when she realizes that she rules her pride. Her pride does not rule her. That's what they're trying to teach Aviendha here. That is exactly what they're trying to teach Aviendha. Is it's pride is not a sin in and of itself. What is your pride in?
Mhm.
And what does it drive you to do?
Yeah, and this lesson for Avienda is kind of it's a parable for the weakness of the Isle, period.
Mm,
Is they have this honor culture, which for the first, maybe 8 books or so, you're like, oh, why can't everybody be like that? Because and the Aiel think of themselves that way. Why isn't everybody like this?
yeah.
Well, this is the weakness of it. You can be controlled by the very thing that makes you who you are.
Yeah.
And because everything is based on honor and shame, she is basically being taught that you are controlled by your shame.
And it's a good point because she isn't actually able to get out of this rut herself. It's not until Min comes up to talk to her because we've got to do something about him. We've got to help Rand. Min is kind of at her wits end here, and finally goes to Avienda because Avienda hasn't come to her, and we need to talk. I need your help. We need to do something about this. And I think that's why you have the age lace, the pattern as the iconography of this chapter, because Avienda needs that thread from Min to help break her out of her rut because she can't do it herself. And I don't think she doesn't exactly notice it. She kind of does, but I don't think she realizes it yet and doesn't necessarily give Min the credit. She's more of a, oh, how much longer would it have taken if Min hadn't made me so mad? Well, yeah, you should be thankful for that. You should learn that lesson is that it took Min accidentally making you so pissed off that you finally got fed up. It took this outside force because you were so blinded, you were so wrapped up in your little bubble of Giotto that you couldn't think outside the box. And what the wise ones are trying to teach you is that as a wise one, you are going to have to think outside the box. In much the same way that the kind of the last lesson, that Amos teaches her before she goes off through the gateway is that the other element to this lesson, the lesser but still important part of this lesson is remember what you felt during those punishments, because at some point as a wise one, you will be called on to pass judgment on that saying. So remember, it's the same way as, if you're going to shoot a taser at someone, you better get tased yourself so you know what you're in for. you know uh this is this is why going through basic training they make you take your gas mask off and breathe in tear gas. It's not just to be mean, it's so you'll fricking remember that discomfort, and it will outweigh the discomfort of wearing the stupid gas mask. Uh, and I've gotten ahead of myself, so now I'm trying to backtrack and find my notes.
Well, you were talking about Min kind of bringing Aviendo around.
Yes, but it's in a roundabout way, and when Min first comes up to her and she's concerned about Rand, but we still see Avienda is trapped in this Giotto dogmatic cage. And Min is talking about something has changed, can't you feel it? And Avienda, her concern and her first thought, her response is there is much honor in him because he killed yet another of the Shadow Souled, one of the Forsaken, and another dark friend, and got himself out. And because she's so wrapped up in that, she can't see that Min is right and that Rand desperately needs help. All she sees is the honor of a win in battle. And she doesn't have the wisdom to see you can win the fight and lose the war, and that's what's about to happen to Rand. Uh and the kind of the last kind of moment before Min finally accidentally breaks her is, where is it? So on 388,
Yeah.
um can't you feel his pain? Is Min asking her. I feel each and every moment of it, Avienda said through gritted teeth, but he must face his own trials just as I face mine. Perhaps there will be a day when he and I can face ours together, but that time is not now. And she's right and she's wrong, because yeah, she still has lessons to learn. She still needs to grow. Rand desperately needs wisdom. And so Avienda is right in that she hasn't found that wisdom yet. So she actually can't help him. But she's wrong in what she thinks she needs to do that, because it isn't actually the wisdom. She's not looking at the wisdom, she's looking at the honor. And this is her in her head. After she says that out loud to Min, she thinks, I must be his equal first, she added in her head. I will not stand beside him as an inferior. Okay, but what does that mean? And I hadn't thought about this before, but um there's a similarity, a lesson here with Min, because she, in the same way that Min accidentally pisses off Avienda accidentally insults Min by basically telling her you can't take care of yourself. It would be dishonorable for me to fight you because I'd whoop you. And Min twirls the knives around her fingers and then makes it disappear back up her sleeve. And Avienda kind of rolls her eyes and thinks, why do wetlanders do that? Don't you know I could have killed you 3 times over while you were showing off with your blade? That's not the point of showing off with the blade. It takes a high degree of skill with a blade to do what Avienda just did.
Mm-hmm. You
It's
mean
it's
just did?
Min just did. Yeah. It's like juggling a soccer ball. Yeah, you're never going to use that in a game, but it demonstrates you have a tremendous amount of control, a tremendous amount of footwork, a tremendous amount of concentration, which translates to the skills you need in the actual game. And and so Min or Avienda is obsessed with being Rand's equal. That's not what Rand needs. Rand needs a companion. Min isn't his equal. She can't channel. As good as she is with knives, she no chance against Rand in a fight. But that's not what Rand needs from her. And that's and being his equal, yes, you can, as she finally says when she goes to confront the wise ones, I've learned every lesson. I can channel better than any other Aiel woman alive. That's not what Rand needs from you. He has Nynaeve for that. or what's her name, the former Domine, who's even stronger than Nynaeve. If he needs a strong woman to channel, I mean he has several he can pick from. That's not what he needs from you. And she doesn't understand that until she finally, you know, don't get too far into it because we'll see it when it actually happens. But her road to Ruideen and going through the glass columns and all of that, she finally earns a measure of wisdom, and then she finally realizes this is what it means to stand beside Rand. This is what he needs.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate here because there's a huge thing I don't like about this. I do like that Min got her interaction with Min was ultimately what kind of got it going, but I hate that it's a hissy fit.
Mm.
She basically threw a fit and accidentally got it right.
Yes, yeah, that is the
That
downside
is
of
the
this.
opposite of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom would be an epiphany, would be, wait a minute.
Well,
It would have
actually,
been her dripping the water saying, maybe I have learned everything.
where is it?
In fact, in her interaction with the wise ones, they kind of guide the conversation to get her in the right direction.
Yes. Um,
And she never learns until they explain it to her after they already accepted her as a
however, so there is a measure of wisdom in getting it instinctively. No, she doesn't get it fully, but she instinctively has finally come to grasp what they're trying to teach her. And there is a difference here. So on page 390, as she's walking to the wise ones, as she's finally decided, you know what, enough is enough. I'm done with this. She's thinking it through in sharp contrast to who we just left, which was Sir Dummy, Galwin. He just is acting on his anger. She has this thought of uh, uh, did she not have a right to anger? And she's not necessarily wrong if she's finally realized these punishments make no sense, and I'm right to be angry for being punished for no reason, and you not telling me what the heck it is I'm supposed to be learning. And she says as much when she finally gets there. Yeah, I feel like it could have been better, but at least it's not a complete hissy fit. She is thinking things through, even if she doesn't completely get there. So I don't have as much of a problem with it as I think you do, because, as I've said, pointing out with Katsuin's point of view is that she's good because she's not perfect. And I think this works because it's pointing out, yeah, she's strong. Yeah, she may not be the same kind of smart as Min and Elaine, but she ain't no dummy. And she is thinking things through, and it leads her to the right road, even if she doesn't know why it's the right road.
well, which I think there's key words in here. She's trying to be a wise one. It's the opposite of wisdom to react to your emotion. And it
True.
took an emotional reaction for her to come out of the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Now we could have had an emotional reaction of anger the whole time and then an epiphany,
Mm,
but she was still acting on the emotion.
yeah.
Yeah, emotion is a driver. That is what emotion is. It is a motivation to do something. But at the same time, wisdom is the ability to step back from the emotion and make sure it's not controlling you. She was still under the control of the emotion when the epiphany came to fruition. And
Mm,
that's what I didn't like about it. But also, we got a younger writer here.
true.
He probably hasn't had very many wise moments in his entire life. A lot of intelligent moments, but not as many wise.
Well, I think there's also an element of the wise ones themselves, I don't think, expect you to understand. They just want you to stand up for yourself. That's the actual lesson. So that's going to be different with different people. And for them, as they say, I think it's 391 when they finally kind of explain it here is 391, 392 is look, once you join us, you're going to be one of us, and that means you have to act like it. You cannot still think like an apprentice, or you're of no use to us. Um, and there's there's true wisdom in that, and and they also kind of point out the silliness of the way the Aes Sedai organize themselves by power,
Mm-hmm.
and Aviendha makes the point, well, is there not rank amongst wise ones? And they kind of look at her funny. Well, not exactly rank. There's different levels of experience, different levels of wisdom based on different kinds of and amounts of experience, and so we defer based on that. So we don't expect you to be as wise as Cerelia the moment you join us, but you had still better be one of us and not an apprentice. Yeah, deferring is one thing, being a simp is another thing. And I think that's how they view the wise one or the Aes Sedai, and why they make the analogy of, and this is something Elaine and Egwene have grumbled about in their own thoughts and it's speaking as well, is Egwene makes the point outright of, no, it's Nynaeve when she's learning, whoever it is that's teaching her the weaves. I think it may have been Daigen, poor Daigen, who's dead now. It's not right that you have all this experience, you have centuries of wisdom, and the second, um, an accepted who's more powerful than you gains the Shaw, you suddenly have to start bowing to her like she's a servant because you're so relatively weak in the power, and it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the wise ones are saying here is, yeah, be wise enough to defer, but also be strong enough to speak your mind. All right, do we need to pause a second before we get to Matt?
Yeah, let's pause a second.
All right. All right. I don't think it'll take that long, but still I had to pour one out for our boy Matt.
uh, we said we weren't going to rant on that today.
Look what they did to my boy. Uh yeah, we don't need to rant too much because we spent so much time in it uh with his kind of, his first appearance here with Sanderson. And so much of it is simply the there's a couple things going on here in these two chapters, chapter 27 and 28, and I've referenced this before, but um from the few of his books that I have read, Sanderson has a bit of an M. Night Shyamalan problem where he likes to be clever and he likes to have these twists, which was fine in M. Night Shyamalan's first couple of movies. Then that became the thing and the expectation, and he kept trying to outdo himself, and he just became a parody of himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to get into the spoilery part of it, but there is an element of that with Hinterstep of what's going on here seems to be irrelevant and then suddenly pops back up later, and it's, oh, this actually turned out to be important after all. And I use important in air quotes because kind of was, kind of wasn't, it, we'll get there when we get there, but the payoff doesn't land for me at all. And I think a big part of that is the general problem with Matt, which is, I don't know exactly why, but I do have to wonder if part of the problem is his inability to find Matt's voice means he's trying too hard, means he spins way too many words. You have two chapters here that very easily could have been and should have been a single chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which is disappointing because there is a lot of poetic irony in Matt being part of the Moiraine story
yes.
because Matt was the original dissenter of everything. He
Yes.
was the original one to kind of hold it personal against her. Uh, and there, this could have been very parallel to him rescuing the girls in book 3,
Mm,
where he could, if he had been able to channel Matt, it would have been that the whole time. It would have been like,
yeah.
what the hell am I doing? But I'll lay into him when I get there, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a shame because there are some good moments here. So page 404, again, way too wordy, but then you finally get to a nice moment here with between Matt and Tom. Um, and we talked about this way back in, is it book 6, when Matt shows up at Saladar and gets weaseled into going off with Elaine and Nynaeve. And what's so great about that moment is that the 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 moment between Matt and Tom, where Matt is giving him, I don't know why I didn't think about this with the contrast with Gawain, but basically Matt and Tom have the same conversation that Gawain and Brian just had, but Matt actually gets it because he has an actual core. He is actually a fully developed human being, whereas Gawain is just this husk acting on emotion. I hadn't thought about that before, but that's basically the same conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But Matt has enough self-awareness to realize I may not like it, but Tom's right. I don't have to like it, but Tom's right. And so I'm going to do what I can to help them instead of doing what I think I should do, which is literally knock some sense into them. Um, and then you have a similar moment here, um, with Tom. Where is it? They're kind of reminiscing here, and Tom chuckled. We can't go back, Matt. The wheel has turned for better or worse, and it will keep on turning as light dies and forests dim, storms call and skies break. Turn it will. The wheel is not hope, and the wheel does not care. The wheel simply is. But so long as it turns, folk may hope, folk may care. For with light that fades, another will eventually grow, and each storm that rages must eventually die. As long as the wheel turns, as long as it turns. Matt guided Pips around a particularly deep cleft in the broken ground ahead. Uh, that is the song. That has the sound of a song about it, Tom. Tom said with almost a sigh, an old one, forgotten by most. I've discovered 3 versions of it, all with the same words set to different tunes. Blah blah blah. Um, Tom is intellectualizing there using this poetry. He's intellectualizing what Matt does naturally, which is however much he may bitch and moan, he still just rolls with it. So he's intellectualizing what Matt does naturally, and I think that's why they make such a good team. Uh, and why, to your point, it's a bit of a shame how this moment that has been teased and we've been building to for half the series now, which is going to rescue Moraine, it doesn't fall as flat as Matt's reunion with Perrin, but it falls pretty flat. It's not as good as it could have been, and I think a lot of it is what we ranted about, which is uh the shotgun approach. Um, where is it? So it's on the next page here.
Well, there's an important, while you collect that thought, there's an important element of personality here that makes the mats necessary of the world. I'm going to use the example of the plow. The plow was invented and the world changed, right? So Matt is the kind of kid, the young male, that is told to plow, or excuse me, told to go work in the farm. And back before the plow, you were digging holes and planting and digging holes and planting and digging holes and planting and doing it a very, very, very short way. But someone like Matt comes along and says, there's got to be a faster way we can do this so I can go play. That's the kind of person that invents the plow.
Mm,
There's got to be a faster way to do this.
mm.
Whereas the parent of the world is dig, plant, dig, plant, dig, plant. I'll just work hard till it's done.
Got to get done, so let's just
Gotta
get to
get
it.
done. So let's get to it. And then there's the Matt that's going, I wonder if I get this done faster, I can go play with a badger.
Hmm. Um, okay, here it is. It's at the bottom of page 405. Okay. Why, Matron, Tom said, looking up, eyes glimmering with mirth. Bolstering a man's spirits when he's down, convincing him to stay and do what is important rather than running off to seek adventure. That sounds downright responsible. What's gotten into you? Matt grimaced. Marriage, I guess. Burn me, but I'm not going to stop drinking or gambling. Ahead, Talmanis turned around and glanced at Matt, then rolled his eyes. In a microcosm, that's a good scene, but it doesn't work because of all the shotgunning.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sanderson keeps blasting away with the shotgun, just hoping hoping enough of the pellets land within the target to matter, but it's so scattered that it doesn't. Because what Tom just said there has been said way too many times and way more awkwardly by Tominus himself.
Mm-hmm.
So Tominus turning, looking, and rolling his eyes because he's been way too verbose, and Sanderson suddenly decided he needed to have this weird sense of humor that he never really demonstrated before. That moment doesn't land.
It's just not fitting with Matt's personality because Matt for 10 books, yeah, would semi be regretful of being married, but he would be more future focused in a sense of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can't do anything about that right now, but here we are. We're trying to get an army through these mountains, and I need somehow to rescue Moraine, but I can't figure it out. I'll deal with that later.
Yeah,
But we
yeah,
keep coming back to it. Like, oh, now you're being
exactly.
responsible. Oh, now you're doing
It,
this. It,
it's it's that awkward guy in the group that basically keeps telling the same joke because it was funny. He got a good laugh, and now he keeps trying to do the same thing or tell the same joke, and it's okay, yeah, dude, yeah, but it's not landing anymore. The marriage, I guess, but damn it, I'm not gonna stop gambling and drinking in taverns. Okay, yeah, except when we first met you in this book, you spent 5 pages going off on this meandering diatribe about just that. It's enough to just say, yeah, you know, marriage is what's gotten into me. That's what's making me responsible, but I'm still me, damn it. You know, we would all have a chuckle if that's all there was to it, but we can't because much like this whole Hinterstep scene, it goes on for way too damn long.
Well, I mean, and we've already this is like the slog with Perrin. Our big beef with the slog is we've already been through the Fael and him relationship. It was fixed, it was good, and then we slogged through another
Yes.
reinventing of it. We already went through this with Matt when he became a general.
Yeah. Yeah.
We went through the whole damn thing where he was just trying to get away and he ended up a general. And now we've got the secondary. Well, he's just trying to do what's right at the moment and he ends up married. But now we're getting when he ended up a general, he just kind of embraced it and made the best of the situation. That's what he would be doing with the whole marriage thing, which since they're separate right now, not separated, but separate right now, he would be just going about his life.
That's a great point because that moment when he finally accepted that he's a general now, Rand, you know, almost literally pins him down and says, face facts, look at what happened, 1 2 3, look at the events that have been happening, something's in your head, I know about it because I was there and I was the one who literally brought you back to life, and I need that, and you need to stop running away from it. And he grumbles and he groans and then he does it. And then you get a little bit of a rehash of that later when Rand pops in to say, change of plans. I need you to go here and rescue Egwene and Elaine and take Elaine to Camelin. And it's we had a plan. You came up with the plan and I helped you revise the plan. And this is the plan. Dang it. We need to stick to the plan. And then after he realizes that he's not going to talk Rand out of it, then it's all right, fine. Let's do it. You know, I don't have to like it, but this is the way it's going to be. So let's get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So we have already seen this. We don't need to rehash this. Um, and we certainly don't need to spend so long on it. Uh, jump into the next chapter though, and there is again, it's not all bad, and there are some good moments here on page 434. So after the oh, there was another thing I wanted to point out though, that uh you get this in a moment later. I don't want to go into because of spoilers, but to his credit, Sanderson does a good job of painting in your mind this picture of utter chaos, the craziness that is happening in this pretty good sized town. It's a big enough town to have, I think, 4 inns in it. So it's a big town. And everyone is just going nuts. And it's dark and you can't see what's going on. You can just hear. And there's another similar scene that happens way down the line where he does a good job of portraying the chaos. And I point this out because there are going to come some specific moments later where something similar is happening in the world of dreams that I remember at first reading going, this doesn't work for me. And so I know he can write the chaos, but there's something about uh um the supernatural unexplainable that he doesn't write as well, of giving you that sense of craziness, but because it is an almost Lovecraftian kind of craziness in the world of dreams,
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't seem as able to write that as the physical, tangible craziness, chaos that is happening here in Hinterstap. And you know, similar scene happens later, um, that we'll get to when we get to it. But I did want to put a pin in that so that we could maybe look at it a little more in depth when we get to the wild craziness, this very long wild craziness that happens within the world of dreams. That I just remember both the first and second time I read going, uh, this isn't landing for me. This isn't working.
Well, and there's also just jokes that don't land.
Mhm.
Like when Tom hands him the picture of himself. The original Matt would have been like, "Oh shit, just oh shit," and
Yes.
let's get out of here. But
Yeah.
handsome fellow, good nose, straight teeth, dashing hat, and then Tom laughs at it. No, if the old Matt would have said that, Tom would have smacked him upside the head. You didn't get either of these two characters.
Right. Which is a shame because the last note I had here on page 434, this is a great Mattism, because no, this is why Matt is Matt and why we love him is all right. Um where is it? Where is it? Where is it? All right. So he's gonna go down. All right, it's light. He wants to go down into Hinterstep and check it out. Within minutes, Matt and Tom were on their horses, riding down the path back toward Hinterstep. Lad, Tom said, what is it you expect to find? I don't know, Matt replied. If I did, I wouldn't be so keen to look. Fair enough, Tom said softly. That's a great exchange because that is both of them. You get it. Possibly on accident, but you get it. it makes me think the really the real root of the problem with Sanderson and Matt was confidence, because he didn't think he got Matt, because he was insecure about this is the character I get the least. I
He
think
talked
that
himself out of the sale kind of thing.
exactly. I
Yeah.
think he talked himself out of the sale. Because he was so insecure, he overreacted, which is why Matt's chapters are overly verbose and go on longer than they need to. Um, because he's trying so hard to make the sale and talking himself out of the sale. I think that's a good way to put it. Um, Actually, the last note I had was while I was waiting for you to finish up. Um, I was watching I think I've referenced it before. There's a pretty good pop culture critique channel called Echo Chamberlain. Um, and he has a video on the death of the girl boss. And you can have a girl who's a boss, but the girl boss, one word, capital letters, as a stereotype, as an archetype, the reason it is failing, it has failed so utterly, especially the longer it goes on. Um, he had this great line that I thought, ooh, that that is true in this instance, but also I think um really nails why Matt in these chapters, and to be fair, Perrin, even in Jordan's own words, the reason they don't work, what Scott termed the slog, the reason it's a slog is, so this guy said the girl bosses, they don't go through a journey, but a process. Processes are boring. When you have to go through a process of, okay, oh geez, when you when you had to reapply for graduate school, there was a checklist, I'm sure, of, oh geez, I got to do all this crap. It wasn't fun. It was boring. It was, all right, let me make sure I got this. Now I got to do that. Now I got to, the worst one is good luck and have fun when your kid has to go get their driver's license, because you will want to stab yourself and everyone else in the face. It's a process. It's boring versus, hey, let's hop in the car and go for a ride, where I don't know, I don't care. Let's just go on a journey. Journeys are interesting. Matt's not going on a journey here. He's going through a process. Perrin wasn't going on a journey like he did in book 3 and 4. That was a journey, and there were interesting things that happened along the way, which led to an overall interesting growth in his character. What Perrin is going through in books, 7 through the end, basically, is a process. And checking boxes isn't fun unless you're super duper autistic. It certainly doesn't make for good fictional reading.
Mm-hmm.
To your point that you made a while ago, I think that is why Perrin and Matt should have gotten back together a lot sooner,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a process here. It's not a journey to get to Camelin. It's just a process. I need to do these things. I need to have scenes. I need to have scenes with Matt doing things. Yeah, okay, but why? The point is he needs to get to Camelin and reunite with Perrin along with doing other stuff. Okay, that should be a journey. Instead, it's just, I need to have these scenes where he does things.
Yeah. Well, and it also would have filled some plot holes because, okay, so Matt's got to do his thing. Okay, so I think we're kind of done with the in text right now. So,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, we're going to talk about some things that, because we're speculating here and there's a lot of
Yes.
counterfactuals, we'll talk about things that could be spoilery. Uh, Matt's going to eventually go with Tom to do the thing that he needs to do. Well, what happens with the army? Well, we got Ptolemies, right? But you could have had those armies together and Perrin be the glue as Matt left again. Because how many times, as the general of the army, can you leave to do your own adventures
That's a good point.
and come back.
And here we have yet another moment where it could have should have happened, because when Matt asks the mayor about, the paper, it's they're also looking for this other guy, big burly guy with a beard and golden eyes, and Matt is, ah, crap. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. All right, fine. They didn't meet up there where they could have. Why not here?
Well, and and another part of it too, why in the hell do we have Perrin moments at the Tower of Genji with Slayer if Perrin wasn't going to be part of that process too?
That was a lot of the speculation, was knowing that it needed to be three. There was a lot of speculation on Matt, Tom, and Perrin, obviously, because Perrin knows about the tower.
Mm-hmm. I don't mind the three that went, but at the same time, yeah,
That
Perrin could have been the person in there, and him have a feeling like this is like the wolf dream, and him be part of the escape because he can manipulate things in that area.
Mhm, mhm. And I can't even remember, because they talk about in these two chapters, Matt and Tom talk about trying to find information. Surely someone must know something about the tower. And they do talk to Birgitti about it. I don't remember if he talks to Perrin about it. And to your point, gaping plot, yes. Is there a reason to bring it up? Well, Matt wouldn't necessarily expect that Perrin would know anything about the tower, but he's one of your best friends since you were a kid. Surely you would bring it up, if nothing else, to commiserate and say, "Hey, I've got to go do this crazy, stupid thing, and I may not come back. I
Yeah,
love you,
yeah,
brother." But
yeah. That's
you
exactly what
know,
I was gonna say. It's organic that it would come up because he has to explain why he's got to leave for a minute.
mhm, exactly. And it also would have been fun and cool. There's going to be some, there's a big battle that happens here, either later in this book or at the beginning of the next book. I don't remember which it is, where Perrin um fights this big group of Trollocs. How much more fun would that have been if the band was with him and it was an even bigger battle, and Perrin and Matt would have been together, of here's Perrin the instinctual warrior, and here's Matt the thinking general, and have the dynamic of the two of them together in this moment.
Especially since you actually, to this point, the band has not fought Trollocs yet.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, they're gonna have to, and they're on
And
the
in
same
fact,
damn
super,
road.
super spoiler, do they even fight Trollocs in the last battle?
Yes, they eventually do,
Okay, because I remember him fighting the Sharans a lot.
because they
Yeah,
finally get to use the artillery.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, the band has to, that is what I was referring to and didn't want to get into outside of spoilers, was the scene where Tolmanes is trying to get himself and the band to get to the cannons and rescue them, because the city's being overrun by Trollocs, and then get the heck out of Camelin. That's written very well, in contrast with some of the wild craziness that is happening in the Wolf Dream with Perrin, which I don't think lands as well, because there's something about that supernatural existential weirdness that Sanderson can't write as well as the tangible. Because as much as it goes on too long, the chaos of the night in Hinderstaff is well written. The chaos of the Trollocs overrunning Camelin is well written. Um,
Which is funny because I don't know if Jordan was going this direction, but I don't even know if the knowledge was around when he was writing. At least the first the in the early 90s, the late 80s when he was writing the first books. But the World of Dreams makes sense to be the wolf dream because it's a purely limbic state.
hmm.
When you actually dream, and this is what I don't know if the knowledge was around yet, because I don't think we had fMRI scanners back then. When you're asleep, the reason why dreams are so weird is because you're basically paralyzed and your prefrontal cortex is turned off. So your brain is just left wide open to go through all its memories, which is actually part of the limbic system, not the conscious system. Go through all its memories and just go through whatever
Yeah, I don't
is.
remember what I was watching where I just recently learned this, but I'd always thought, and I think most people think you dream in REM. That's not true. You actually
You
dream in all three
dream in all
stages.
three stages, but REM is different
Exactly.
because you're basically paralyzed and you're incapable of fear.
Those are the dreams you really remember because of what is going on in your brain during REM
Well,
is different from the other two stages of sleep.
but also because of the three stages of sleep we have. The easiest way to explain this is because you can't shut your whole brain off at once, but it does need rest. So it shuts
Mhm.
off in pieces and parts, so you're still alive while it's getting rest. And REM is the closest to being in an awake state. That's why we remember it, because it's usually the one we wake out of. If you've ever had a real nightmare, a real nightmare where you were scared in the dream and you woke from it, that is actually you waking from deep sleep to direct awake.
I was trying to find how long this concept has been around, and I can't find a history of it. But you talking about dreaming and the world of dreams made me think, the science wasn't there, but I believe the concept of lucid dreaming has been around for a long time.
Yeah, well, lucid dreaming was back in the Freudian days,
Okay.
which was pre World War One.
And,
So
and techniques to get to be able to do that. The idea that you could teach yourself how to do that.
yeah, that was
Um,
one of the things Freud wrote extensively on.
I thought it had been around for a while. I did not remember it
I
being
believe lucid
Freudian.
dreaming was what gave him the idea of hypnosis, or
Mm,
it might be flipped. His
okay.
learning of hypnosis might have been given him the idea of
Okay.
lucid dreaming,
So
but
the science may not have been there, but I would bet that that was a major component to the genesis for the idea of the world of dreams and then dreamers with a capital D, dream walkers. My suspicion would be that the idea of lucid dreaming probably influenced that.
oh, I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
And that is ultimately what we're going to get to when we get back to Perrin and his time with Hopper learning the dream is he's learning to be the most capable and powerful lucid dreamer in the world, even more so than Egwene.
Well, and Jordan, being a physicist, would have been all about the vibrations. And if you
Yeah.
can enter a state where you're actually affecting the world around you because of this this underlying physical, quantum level thinking, maybe you could enter a state where you're actually part of the rest of the universe
Hmm.
versus just in your own body. And that would be
Yeah.
something a true physicist would ruminate on at certain points of his life.
Yeah. 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 I shared that episode. I can't remember what it's called, but I shared that little bit of an episode from the Y files about this. It
Oh,
was
the
a
astral
Marine.
projection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I kept waiting. The reason I love the Y files is because, and I think I've said this before, unlike other kind of debunking things, I love the way they do their scripts where he doesn't make snarky comments or whatever at the beginning. He tells you a story, and they do it so well that no matter how skeptical you are in, man. You are bought in that this has to be real. And then they get through the story, whatever the story of that episode happens to be, and it's okay, but how much of this is true? And the reason I loved that one is I kept waiting for the end, and he goes, oh no, yeah, this is all real. We have the documents. We people have done FOIA requests, and it's now we don't know who or how many have actually gone through this process, but the scientific paper, the white paper on this process for achieving the ability to basically astral project, oh yeah, no, that's completely true, and here's all the science behind it. We
If
just don't know if anyone's actually done it.
if this was a thing, and if it was real, and if it was possible, I should say, where you could enter this kind of lucid dreaming state and enter a universal kind of oneness with the vibrations around you in order to affect the entire universe or be part of the entire universe, the extent of your effect that you could have would only be on people in the exact same state, which we get some of that in the world of dreams here until they introduce the concept of being able to enter it in real life, which is apparently dangerous. So that's where, if this was a thing that could be,
Mm,
then you could communicate through dreams or whatever. If again, if it was to be a thing that worked, it would only work in the same state as if so. So if I was to communicate with you from across the world, we would have to both be in that lucid dreaming state to be part of
yeah.
that. Now, the entering it in real life is, well, okay, now we have to enter the realm of this is complete fantasy. We can't even bring up state things from modern physics. It,
Well, okay, while we're speculating here and rambling in spoiler talk, I should probably be careful so we don't have to put too many disclaimers on here. And I don't want to go into specifics. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about.
we're talking about a
I am
fantasy novel. If we have to put disclaimers on it,
okay. Well, I'm a, I'm about to talk about psychedelics.
ah,
I am currently, I won't say the name of the drug. If you know, you know. I am currently undergoing a treatment. Uh,
you said the name on a previous episode.
oh, did I? Oh, yeah, I held up the pamphlet.
Yeah,
Um, it is an antidepressant treatment that is derived from a psychedelic. Now, one of the interesting things that I learned during this process is after the first treatment, the nurse asked me if I had any disassociative feelings, which, if you've ever played around with magic mushrooms or if you listen to Joe Rogan, then you know all about ayahuasca and magic shrooms and all this stuff, and what that means to have a disassociative feeling. Well, apparently, that is an indication that the treatment might be working and working better for you than someone else. Because apparently, if you don't have that disassociative feeling, especially at first, then the treatment probably isn't going to work for you. And I found that very interesting, and it made me wonder what the witchcraft in the brain, what's going on there that that would create this as disassociative feeling, and then why that would matter. And I'm curious if Jordan ever looked into things like peyote and ayahuasca and anything like that when he was developing the world of dreams, because that's an element to those native cultures and traditions that what peyote is you are entering a dream state. Basically, you are crossing over so that you can commune with the spirits, or gain wisdom or whatever it happens to be depending on the particular culture. And there has to be something to that. And I find it interesting that basically that um the gateway process, that's what it was called, if you want to look that up. That was what this white paper was, and that was this Marine lieutenant colonel, and I can't remember what his degree background was, but he had a hard science background. And basically, the way I read it is that he was thinking that we could use uh uh physics principles to achieve a psychedelic effect, to achieve a dissociative effect and control it. The thing about these, you know, psychedelic induced dissociative effects is how much control do you actually have over the process and within the process. And so I find it curious that I doubt he knew about the gateway process because it was classified for a long time when he started this. But it makes me wonder if he had thought experiments that went down that same road of, hey, I wonder if we could target this effect, with physics or with chemistry, could we achieve the thing but have the control that you don't have with, ayahuasca or LSD or whatever.
which is why I couldn't be a physicist because the math is not that bad and all of the things that scare most people, but it is the this is a very human thing. It's a very left brain thing.
Mm.
Let's take this natural phenomenon and let's control it. Whereas there's people like myself on the right brain is let's take this natural phenomenon and let's harness it. There's a difference. There is a very Bruce Lee be like water, my friend, to the let's take advantage of this thing that exists to see how far it can take us forward versus
uh,
I'm going to control this thing and I'm going to make it do my will.
I, I think that's why you like Eric Weinstein. It's because I didn't know this before listening to him on this last time he was on Williamson. I didn't realize he was also an artist.
Mm-hmm.
He's a musician. So,
Oh yeah,
so
he goes super uber music snob nerd on a lot of things.
exactly. And I think that makes him different from your standard physicist because he is also an artist. And so he is more interested in in knowledge for knowledge's sake than the knowledge so that I can control it, which is to your point is, yeah, no, that's kind of your standard physics. That's go back to Newton, who basically invented physics and invented calculus so that he could express physics. And what he was trying to do was, all right, how can we replicate in the physical? What is this thing happening in the physical world so that we can replicate it and control it?
Yeah, or understand. There's yeah, understand versus control. I'll give you a great example. What we call ADHD. ADHD is very well predicted by the number of D4.6. I think I got it right off the top of my head. I would have had it prepared otherwise. D4.6 dopamine receptors in the brain. Basically, this mutation, where I learned it, they called it a mutation, but I might call it an adaptation, causes you to get a better dopamine hit when you switch tasks frequently.
Hmm.
This is a genetic thing. This is a genetic marker. We know this exists in our genome, and some people have it more than others. If not on everything, but in most things, if you find that pattern, you start to have to ask the question of what's the adaptive purpose of this? That's the right brain answer to it. But what we got in this world is, oh, this thing exists. And this is why these people can't sit down and shut up in school. Let's control it with a drug that blocks that receptor. Two different mindsets, two different results, same source. So I've gotten into many heated discussions in my neuroscience class now because I'm like, what if ADHD is adaptive? Why are we drugging our kids?
All right, you want to get in trouble? You want to get in even more trouble in your class?
Well, my thing is, well, if it's adaptive, let's find out what's useful about it because we might be able to figure out what's how this kind of person will be better for society, right?
So that uh, it's a good thing you're in those classes and not me because my snarky a-hole response to that would be, to make the point in a way that is not as persuasive would be, how is that any different than trying to pray the gay away?
Well, now they're transing the gay away, so it's
Shh,
yeah,
cancel,
there's the cancellation right there.
and we're done.
One argument might be that they are doing that. That is not my official position. uh,
According to whistleblowers in Britain, it is, but let's not go there. Instead, let's say, all right,
but
we are.
but then again, that's the difference between Matt and Perrin, though. Matt is this is why Sanderson doesn't get Matt because I think Sanderson is a let's control
Uh,
the situation. Matt he keeps trying to make Matt try to get like in his mind try to get control of the situation when Matt was water. And the reason water's so powerful to bring Bruce Lee's teaching to a modern sense is it can flow and fit into anything. But also it's why hydraulics work because you cannot compress water.
Mm.
Water is you I mean at least with the powers that we have in modern physics, you cannot compress water. That is why everything dies at deep sea because water does not squish around them, you squish inside.
Yeah, for anyone who wants a very stark physical lesson in this, go find the Mythbusters episode where they're shooting in the water. And the thinking was, well, we just need more power, but it turned out to be counterintuitive because the higher the caliber, the more quickly the bullet shattered as soon as it hit the water.
Well, that's why hydraulics are used for isotonic training. So isotonic training means this it means same speed. So the harder you push, the more the resistance comes back at you. You cannot change the speed of a hydraulic. No amount of pushing harder makes it go any faster because you cannot compress water.
I like that Matt is the personification of Bruce Lee's Be Water.
Mm-hmm.
We may need that clip ready for the next time we talk Matt, or the next time we talk Perrin, because as you pointed out, yeah, that may be why Sanderson doesn't get Matt, is because Perrin is, as he should be, he's the other end of that spectrum. And we talked about it at the very beginning, or you brought up the point that here's Perrin, here's Matt, and they're three legs of a stool, and Rand is the one in the middle.
Yeah, that's why I don't like you saying the other end of the spectrum because it's a triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a triangle. So he does have some in common, and this is why one of your favorite scenes is so good when he's in the smithy in book 3. Because what is the difference there? He's talking about how you can make steel brittle, but I have to do it this way to make it malleable. That scene has set us up for current Rand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've got, 7 books ago where they're setting you up for why current Rand is bad.
That's a great point. Yeah.
But it also should have been a lesson for current Perrin because Perrin isn't locked in. He likes puzzles. He's very conscientious. He's very step by step. He's an algorithm, but at the same time, he understands, or at least understood from the smithing, where there is balance in creating something strong.
Mm-hmm. It's a great point. That's a great point to end on.
Yeah, it
So,
is because I actually need to finish my final before we leave for Lavernia. And
all right. So we will see y'all next time for whatever annoying thing is going on in the world that we have to rant about. And then after that, we'll see if we can manage to get darker than in real life, because we will start on chapter 29, which is into Bandar Aben. It is finally from Rand's point of view, and we start seeing the tangible effects on the world around Rand once he has basically embraced the darkness. So yay.
embrace the darkness. All right. Well, that's all I had, and we will see y'all next Wednesday. Maybe we'll have something happy to talk about. I still want to talk a little
One
bit of
can hope.
football because it's the off season, and
It's
it's a
spring
happy.
training, and it's almost, the opening day is the end of the month, and you want to talk football? It's baseball time, you communist.
I hate baseball.
Yeah, all right.
Don't tell my clients. But actually, Friendswood is number 12 in the nation right now, and I got one of their starting pitchers. So
Well, all right.
we're
All
there.
right. Well, we'll talk a little bit of sports to have some levity on Wednesday, and then
You just don't want to talk football because you're a Cowboys fan, and off season sucks for you. Cowboys fans are only happy in the preseason and the first 5 games of a season.
just because the thing is true doesn't mean you have to say it out loud. That is a lesson we have learned a number of times in Wheel of Time, and it is true wisdom.
Communication. All right. We'll see you later.